All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a massive philosophical question, but we're going to start somewhere kind of weird. Your spice rack. Yeah, you heard me. We're going to take a journey from like hot sauce all the way to one of the biggest paradoxes ever.
Okay, so let's just jump right in with a question that, believe it or not, starts a ton of fights online. What is the opposite of spicy? Like, if you had to pick one single word, what would it be? It sounds so simple, right? But the answer, well, it actually tells us a whole lot about how our brains are wired.
So you've got these two main camps, right? Some people will shout milky, and, it makes sense at first. Milk soothes the burn. But think about it. An antidote isn't really an opposite. Like, water is the antidote to being thirsty, but we wouldn't say water is the opposite of thirst. That's a bit of a logical trap. So that leaves us with the other answer, minty, because minty gives you that feeling of cold. And this distinction, it matters more than you think.
Okay, so to really get to the bottom of this, we have to get, well, surprisingly philosophical. We've got to ask a really basic question. What does the word opposite even mean? Like, for real?
Let's take something simple, like a loud sound. What's its true opposite? Well, your first instinct is probably quietness, right? You negate the loudness. But hold on, a loud sound and a quiet sound are still both sounds. So a truer opposite would have to negate the very quality of being a sound. But we can go even deeper. A loud sound exists. It's a thing in the world. So its ultimate perfect opposite, well, it would have to be something that doesn't exist at all. Yeah, the real opposite of something that is something that isn't.
And that brings us to a huge, crucial point. The word opposite is kind of useless unless we first agree on the rules of the game. We need a shared context. Without that stable frame, you're not really comparing anything meaningful. It's like trying to find the opposite of an apple when you haven't even agreed you're talking about fruit.
And bam! This idea of context is exactly how we solve our spicy food debate. Let's set the context. What are we talking about? We're talking about a sensory experience in your mouth. Okay? So, spicy food with its capsaicin, it tricks your brain into feeling heat. So the opposite has to be something that tricks your brain into feeling cold. And what is that? Menthol, the stuff in mint. So in this specific context, minty is, without a doubt, the correct opposite of spicy. See how that works?
Okay, fine. So we solved an internet food argument. Who cares, right? Well, here's where it gets really cool. We can take this exact same rule, this idea that you need a logical context for something to make sense, and we can apply it to one of the biggest, baddest philosophical problems of all time. You've probably heard this one before. It's the classic paradox of omnipotence. It's a perfect philosophical mousetrap that has stumped people for centuries, all because it seems to back you into a corner you can't get out of.
So here's how the trap works. If God can make a rock so heavy he can't lift it, well, then there's a rock he can't lift, so he's not all-powerful. But what if he can't make the rock? Well, then there's something he can't do, so he's not all-powerful. It's a total catch-22. Either way you answer yes or no, it seems to prove that being all-powerful is just impossible.
Now, some theologians have offered a potential way out of this, an idea called kenosis. It's this concept that an all-powerful being could just voluntarily give up their power for a second, make the rock, and then, be unable to lift it. But that doesn't really fix it, does it? Because for that moment in time, the being isn't omnipotent anymore. They've essentially paused their omnipotence. It's a neat idea, but it dodges the question instead of solving the core problem.
So how do we get out of this mess? The real solution, the big aha moment, isn't in coming up with a cleverer answer. It's in realizing that the question itself is the problem. It's broken. The flaw isn't in the concept of God's power, it's in the words we're using to ask the question.
Just think about it for a second. Try to imagine a shape that has 3 sides, and also has 4 sides. A triangular rectangle, or maybe a married bachelor. Can you picture it? No. Of course you can't. And it's not because your brain isn't powerful enough, it's because the words themselves are just nonsense. They don't describe a difficult thing, they describe no thing. It's a string of words with 0 actual meaning behind it.
And that right there is the master key that unlocks this entire paradox. A logical contradiction isn't a challenge. It's not a difficult task, it's not an impossible task, because it's not a task at all. It's not a thing. It's just a meaningless jumble of words. It describes nothing. So once you realize that,
It allows us to totally redefine what we mean by omnipotence in a way that actually works.
So omnipotence isn't the power to do literally anything, you can say, including gibberish. It's the power to do all possible things, all actual things. And a rock so heavy an omnipotent being can't lift it is a logical contradiction. It's not a thing. So asking God to create it isn't a test of power. It's like asking God to blorg a flibbertigibbet. It's asking for nothing. And when you see it that way, the paradox just vanishes. It completely dissolves.
And that leaves us with a pretty profound final thought, doesn't it? Maybe we've been looking at power completely backwards. Maybe the greatest power isn't the ability to break logic and do chaotic, impossible things. Maybe, just maybe, true, ultimate power is being the very foundation of logic itself, the reason anything can be rational or even exist in the first place. What do you think?